Hello, this is Robert Walker, voluntary fact checker, and helping you if you're scared of many things. And just to continue from the last video, this is if you're scared of a nuclear war or a world war. So I'll quickly go through summarize the basic reasoning, and then I'll continue where the last video broke off because it just ran out of time. So, first of all, nobody is going to start a nuclear war, and even at the height of the Cold War, then neither the United States, and we now know, or NATO, and also on the other side, we also know that the Soviet Union didn't even consider starting a nuclear war. And at the height of the Cold War, during a Cuban Missile Crisis, the concern there was about a mistake, and that's the only way it could have happened. And nowadays we've worked so hard to make sure those mistakes can't happen, and we've also got far better communication, so we're no longer in that situation where nuclear war can start by mistake. And that's true for Putin as well. He knows perfectly well he's not going to start a nuclear war, and everyone else agrees once you look at the expert sources. So why do we get the politicians and all these stories about nuclear war and world war? Well, it's for political reasons, it's for clickbait journalism, it's all sorts of reasons, but you can be very sure that they don't actually believe it. And it's a very easy way to see that. So I explained that just as if you are in Tornado Alley, you will know what to do if there's a tornado. If you're in a place that has earthquakes, you know about duck hold cover. If you are in a place with hurricanes, you know what to do there. If there's a tsunami, tsunamis can happen where you live, and you know that if the sea suddenly goes out, you know to run inland and not run towards it. And all these things, you know, you have the basic instructions that everyone knows. So if there was a real risk of a nuclear war, then we would all know how to deal with fallout and how to protect ourselves from fallout. And our leaders don't tell us this, the journalists don't tell us this, but from this we know they're not being genuine. They do not believe the things they're saying. They have other reasons, white lies and stuff like that. So I'm just going to go through the basic instructions of what you do if there is fallout, and this is for two reasons. First, to show how simple they are, and this would be on the news all the time if we did have this risk. And just like in the Cold War, we got booklets through the door about how to protect ourselves in the Cold War when there was a very small risk because of a mistake. And I find that talking about this and just giving these basic instructions, it makes people feel, it helps people, even if they're who are scared of nukes, it helps them to know what you do. So, and that just the instructions by themselves will help. And so some people say, oh, but they're not telling us because they don't want us to panic. That is utter, absolute garbage. Because if they didn't want us to panic, they wouldn't say that there was a risk of a world war or a nuclear war, would they? And to say there's a risk of a world war and a nuclear war and then not tell us what to do, it's like saying there's a risk of a hurricane and too bad, you're just going to be killed by it. That is not a way to avoid panic. So that makes no sense whatsoever. So now I'll just go through the instruction. I'll just show you what you do. So imagine that somewhere over there I just see a light as bright as the sun, a blinding light, just over there somewhere. And then the two things it could be like the Chelyabinsk. If you look at the videos of the Chelyabinsk meteorite, then you can see from there what happens next. So, and it's the same with a nuclear bomb. So, as quickly as thunder. So, like you've got the flash of lightning, and then if you're close, it's really quite quick. You get thunder, and because at the speed of sound, you're going to get the loud noise, but you're also going to get a very sudden shock wave, and it travels at the speed of sound. So if it was it's the same as for thunder. It's 3 seconds for every kilometre away as how long it'll take to get here. So once you see that bright light, don't stop and think. You've only got a second or two. So what you've got to do is to think, now you've got to go straight to the ground and don't stare at it. Go straight to because you could blind yourself. Go straight to the ground, cover your head, and you look for something solid to put between you and that, because it's going to break glass. It's going to shatter glass. A very sudden wind that is over as quickly as it starts. It'll shatter glass, it'll blow things off the ground, and so I would run to here, if it was over there, behind something nice, big and solid, right? So that's what I'd do, and I'd be down on the ground, I'd cover my head, and to be safe from flying glass or anything like that was coming my way. So, now imagine there's the big boom, and it's coming, and there's being a big shock of everything going flying past. So now what do we do next? Well, and if you don't hear boom, then after a minute you're safe enough, because it'd be so far away if it hasn't got to you yet. So then you get up, and your next job, you can now stop for a few seconds. You might see a mushroom cloud at this point, and the mushroom cloud is what you need to protect yourself against next, because the mushroom cloud is full of deadly radioactive dust. And that's going to start falling out of the sky. And it's the heavy dust is what you need to worry about, not radioactive air, not fine dust. It's just heavy dust. Anything that's light and can spread in the wind, it's going to stay up high up in the atmosphere, it's going to spread out, it'll thin out, and it just merges with the background radiation and it's harmless. So you're only worried about heavy dust, very heavy dust, that's going to fall like rain. Sort of like, and that is what you have to keep away from. But you've got 5 to 15 minutes before, it depends how far away, it could be a bit longer if you're very far away, before that could fall. And it's not necessarily going to fall, it depends on the wind direction. So if I'm some way away from it, then chances, most likely I don't get any fallout here. But just in case there is, then I've got a few seconds. You don't need to immediately start running, to stop and think for a second or two. Where around here is the best place that I can get away from dust that falls out of the sky, and get as far away from it as possible. So a metro is perfect, of course. It doesn't need to be airtight, it doesn't need to be a nuclear bunker, just somewhere to get away from the dust. And then any place with a basement, if it's a shop nearby with a basement layer, that's the best of all. But anywhere indoors is going to be far safer than being out of doors, and you're going to have a very small amount of radioactivity to deal with. So in this case, of course, I go straight into my house. So I'd run into my house, and if you're indoors, oh, I forgot to say at the start, if you see a flash of light and you're indoors, then you need to immediately duck as before, and the risk is flying glass. And so and that's why you had these exercises of children in schools. It was a generation before me. They would have these exercises at schools where they go and duck under desks because of the flying glass. So get under a desk or a table or something, put something between yourself and just protect your head from your flying glass. There was a school teacher in the Chelyabinsk meteorite, and told her kids to hide behind desks and save them from very nasty flying glass. She got hurt because she was standing up telling the kids what to do when the flash went, but they all immediately dived beneath their desks and were protected from the flying glass. So you do that. So if you're indoors already, and if you're out of doors, then you go indoors, and if you have any dust that landed on you, then you brush it off, you get rid of your outer clothes, and you go indoors, and then the first minute of radioactivity out of the, if it falls 15 minutes after the explosion, and you're out in the dust, 1 minute of exposure is equivalent to 2 hours of exposure the next day, and it's equivalent to an entire day almost of exposure 2 weeks from now. So the radioactivity goes away very, very quickly. And so you want to get in as quickly as possible, and you want to, if possible, avoid the dust right at the beginning. That's most important. And if you get any dust, you get it off, take any outer clothes off, and then go into as far away from the outside dust as you can get. Make sure that you've got a lot of air and walls if possible. If you've got an interior room that's got walls around it in all directions, that's best of all. Or you can improvise some walls around it. You could get a table, pile some boxes on top of it and beside it, and anything else, anything that will act a bit like a wall too, that'll help deal with some of the radioactivity. And then the instruction is just to stay there for 2 days. And so that's what I do. I'd rush in there, I get under the table, I pile things on top and around it, and I just wait there. And you can, after a few hours, the radioactivity is greatly reduced. You could get up and wander around your house and look for food and water and things, and then just basically stay. But you can manage for 2 days without food if you're in a place that doesn't have any, or without water if necessary. And then, by then you'll be the focus of the biggest humanitarian operation the world has ever seen. There'll probably be people with helicopters and things telling you what to do. Remember, most of the countryside areas and the rural areas now, or anywhere far away from the nukes, is not even, most of it's not even going to have any fallout. So there'll still be hospitals, there'll still be ambulances, there'll still be helicopters and things. Russia's got nothing like enough nukes to carpet a country so that it can destroy all the hospitals and the doctors and things, and the emergency workers. And then there'll be all the people from other countries. And so that's what you do. And that is very simple instructions, and we would be told that over and over again every day. So whenever you see an article by a journalist saying that we risk a nuclear war and a world war, and they don't tell us this, or when you hear a politician saying it and they don't tell us this, then it's obviously they just don't believe what they're saying. Or they're so clueless that if they don't know these basic instructions, then you shouldn't listen to them anyway, because they just don't know what they're talking about. So this is why you can just tell from that alone that there is no risk of a nuclear war, because everybody told about fallout, and these. It doesn't take long. It would, and then some people will say, "Oh, but what about Russia? Because they do have nuclear exercises every year," and that goes back to the Soviet era. It's a thing they've always done. Of course, Russia is worried about NATO attacking them, and we know that NATO is not going to attack Russia with nukes, and it is really part of their propaganda, trying to convince their population that NATO might at any moment attack them with nukes. So they do this. It's a little bit of propaganda, I think, and a little bit of history from the past. And but we in the West we don't have this at all. And from this is abundantly clear that our leaders just do not believe, and they just not even if there was a 1 in 1,000 chance, then we would all know what to do. There isn't even a 1 in 1,000, even a tiny chance of this. It's just not something that we have actually moved beyond the era of nukes and of a nuclear war. And then, as I explained in my and I'll explain in my blog post, which I'll link in the video description. So we are actually moving. There's no country that could. I've already explained that. I don't want to go into detail, but just the basic thing that Russia has withdrawn even from Syria. It has no interest, it has no ports outside of the former Soviet Union. It's only interested in the Russian Empire, which it's not going to get to expand to that. China has never had any interest, has never had any foreign colonies overseas at all. It only has a port in Djibouti. In all its history, I don't think the Chinese Empire has ever had foreign colonies. It's always been interested in trading and in showing how impressive they are to other people, but not actually trying to colonize anywhere. And North Korea is only interested in South Korea and it wants reunification. Iran is very much a spent force at the moment, and its only interest is in the Middle East. It's not wanting to... and Iran, it's only got 6 frigates, and it would take it nearly a week to get the United Kingdom. It's not going to go out down to start a world war. So there's only countries that could start a world war is the NATO ones, France, United Kingdom, and United States. They're the only ones that could even fight globally, and but they are not even the remotest bit interested. They are trying to reduce their influence on the rest, withdraw from the rest of the world because of the expense, especially the United States. So anyway, I talked about all that in a longer video, and we've got larger and larger areas of the world like NATO, and where wars are just stopped within the boundaries of NATO, and entire North America and so on. So we are very safe in places like NATO, and that's why Ukraine wants to join NATO. And as larger and larger areas of the world get onto security arrangements, and then eventually, as Hans Blix sees a future of a world without war eventually. And that's when we'll eventually become a civilized, a true civilization, when we have other ways of settling our differences and competition and things, and still have competition, but no longer people dying because of wars. So that's what my blog post is about, and that's where we're headed. But for now, we're not quite there yet. We sadly still have wars, but we don't risk a world war or nuclear war, and large areas of the world are completely safe. So I hope this helps some of you, some of the scared people. And do read my blog post, which will go into much more detail.